We know that 90% of the people who have illegally crossed the border in the last 4 years do not qualify for asylum. They are economic migrants. They are here for the American dream. And so many working class Americans do not have access to the American dream. And yet our border is open to people from other countries to come here and take advantage of our economic opportunity. It's so unfair. And so they are actually violating the law when they cross into this country illegally because they don't have a valid asylum claim. And I'm so glad that you're highlighting how these people are simply fodder for the cartels. President Biden going down to the border right now is an ad for Trump. Because on day one in office, President Biden took a whole bunch of Trump-era policies that were working, building the wall, remain in Mexico, third country asylum, that if you pass through a country that is deemed safe, like Mexico, to get to America, you cannot then claim asylum in America because you passed through a country that you could have claimed asylum in, right? These were brilliant policies that President Trump put in place that on day one, President Biden got rid of. He doesn't need to go to the border. He can make a trip to Mar-a-Lago and find out how to police the border.
All right, guys, we got to talk about this CNBC interview between Joe Kernen and Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg, in which Joe Kernen is going to check the affirmative action diversity hire Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg on the idea that the border crisis somehow, some way is Trump's fault, because that is what the Biden administration is doing. They are blaming Trump and everybody else for Biden's terrible border policies that have allowed our country to be invaded. And I want to react to this interview because I think that this host does an excellent job of pushing back against slick talking Pete Buttigieg, who, again, is going to try to deflect blame from the Biden administration when it comes to the crisis after being confronted on the fact that their poll numbers are a disaster, okay? The American people are not happy with the Biden administration and Biden administration's policies. In fact, the American people feel like Trump's policies were better for them than Biden's. And Pete Buttigieg and the Biden administration, they are struggling to deal with that, okay? So they have to gaslight the American people on certain issues like the border. At first, they were saying that the border is secure. We know for a fact that's not true. They can't even deny that reality anymore because we've had about 10 million illegals come into this country since Biden took office. That's not a secure border. So now they're just blaming Trump. They're saying, well, we lied about the border being secure, but it's Trump's fault, right? Everything is Trump's fault, even when he's not in office. So I want to talk about it, but before we get into it, we have to have a word from the sponsor of this video, Noble Gold. Have you guys taken a good look at the banks lately? Now, on the surface, everything may seem fine, but there's a whole lot more going on underneath. It's like looking under the hood of a car and finding a mess of broken wires and parts. The parts are loans for homes, cars, and the credit cards that we use. They're all hitting record highs. It's really scary when you think about it. Why risk your money for a tiny 5% when things are so shaky? This is where Noble Gold can help. They're like that friend that knows all about how to keep money safe. They suggest gold and silver, oldies but goodies in the finance world. Plus, they've got a sweet deal, a 1/4 ounce gold standard coin this month if you qualify. That sounds pretty cool, right? If you're curious, just give them a call at 877-646-5347. That is 877-646-5347. And don't worry, it's just a chat, no pressure. They will help you figure out if gold and silver are right for you. Or you can visit noblegoldinvestments.com and take the first step towards a safer, more secure financial future. And just remember, there's a risk with every investment and there's no guarantee of any kind.
Congress right now has an approval rating, last time I checked, was I think in the 20s. So we need to make sure that we highlight the things that are going right and continue to pay attention to the things that are going wrong and lay out the plan and make clear who's trying to get progress and who's trying to actually solve those problems versus just use them to score political points. I mean, it was especially disappointing to see what happened with the border, right? You got congressional GOP, talked about the border every chance they got. So you would think they would be interested in addressing it. And yet,
well, they did try to address it. They addressed it with the Secure the Border Act, which is currently legislation that was passed by the GOP that would have secured the border. It would have fixed the border issue. But yet Chuck Schumer refuses to allow democracy in the Senate by letting his colleagues vote on it. So don't say and try to tell me that the GOP doesn't want to do anything about it, because they passed legislation in the House to do something about it. Again, this is the type of gaslighting that I'm talking about that the American people aren't buying into from the Biden administration.
Yet, when a bipartisan bill put together by one of the most conservative members of the Senate and Democrats working, negotiating, making tough decisions that both of their respective bases were going to have trouble with, came and hammered that out. It looked like there was going to be a chance to do something real with real resources at the border, only for Donald Trump, who's not even an elected official, to come in and kill it with the chill that he put on congressional Republicans.
Yeah, but see, again, here's the problem. Why should Republicans negotiate with Democrats on how to secure the border when Biden took away Trump's executive orders that helped secure the border? And because of that, we have more illegal immigration than we've ever had before in this country. Okay, it's Biden's border policies that made things worse. It was Biden begging illegals to come to this country when he was running in the Democrat primary that motivated people to come. So in a situation where a vast majority of Americans are not satisfied with Biden's border policies, why should Republicans have to negotiate and to compromise with Democrats when Republicans are the party that is trusted by the American people to actually solve the problem and deal with the issue? It doesn't make sense. So the GOP was right to reject the bipartisan deal that would not have secured the border. It would have normalized illegal immigration, because quite honestly, they don't have to negotiate. They don't have to compromise with the Democrats on this issue. A vast majority of the American people agree with the GOP. They want the border secure. More Americans than ever believe that we should have a wall. So when you're in a position where most of the American people agree with your policies and your solutions, there's no reason to negotiate with Democrats at all. So it was good for them not to do it. What actually should happen is that Democrats should get on board with the GOP solution, which is to secure the Border Act, if they actually want to do something about this problem.
So, yeah, we can either solve problems or we can have them be political footballs.
So the whole move to try to come up with something by the administration, and obviously bipartisan, that didn't come until it became clear it was going to be a major campaign issue. And only then did the Biden administration get interested in it. And every time I hear those talking...
Hold on, let's be clear here,
Let me finish first. But every time we hear those talking points that suddenly it was Republicans who ruined the border, that's why people get so frustrated. We know what President Biden said about inviting people in. Facts. We know that he got rid of all the things that were keeping the border closed that President Trump had put in. We know that he got rid of all those. So when you say it's not his fault,
that's literally not true. It's literally not true that he got rid of the family separation.
Well, listen, here's the thing. He also got rid of Remain in Mexico. Okay, he got rid of the policies that would disincentivize illegal immigration. And people may say, oh, it's harsh, it's inhumane, it's this, it's that. No. Ultimately, at the end of the day, we have to disincentivize people from coming into this country illegally. If somebody comes to this country illegally and they bring their child and they try to use their child as leverage to stay in the country, they have to know that that's not going to work. So the only way to let them know that's not going to work is to deport them, right? Hey, you know what? If you try to come in the country illegally, we're going to deport you, right? We're going to send you back. And yeah, we'll keep your child, but we're going to send you back. I personally think that they should send the child back as well too, right? So send them all back. That way you can't say that you're separating any families. But Biden also took away Remain in Mexico, which would have disincentivized illegal immigration, because the illegals would know that, no, you're not just going to come into the United States, be paroled into the country, and think that you can just stay and just run around and commit crimes and do all types of crazy stuff while you wait for your court date that is years down the road. No. You're going to wait in Mexico. You're going to remain in all these other countries, okay, in South America, in Central America, until it's your turn, right? And even then, it's still going to be extremely difficult for you to get in, because we just can't be taking in and everybody into this country anymore. We can't do it, right? We're at capacity for illegals, okay? It's really that simple. But like this guy pointed out, Joe Kernen, the Biden administration didn't make this an issue until it became clear that Trump is expanding his lead in the polls against Biden, and one of the things that is hurting Biden the most is the illegal immigration crisis. Just like when it comes to this issue of Israel and Gaza, all of a sudden now the Biden administration wants a ceasefire because the far left woke revolutionaries have basically said that, hey, we're not going to vote for you, and they proved that they weren't going to do it in Michigan when over 100,000 people came out and voted uncommitted. Now all of a sudden that it's an election issue. Oh, well, Democrats want to actually, pretend like they want to solve the problem, right? Again, it's amazing how Democrats do things when it becomes apparent that they're going to lose an election. But see, if Biden wasn't being hurt so much by this issue, he wouldn't do a damn thing. He would continue to allow this issue to be a problem. I mean, he already is, really, okay, by not getting on board with the Secure the Border Act. Biden is complicit, and he is facilitating an open border, right? By refusing to put back in place Trump's executive orders that deterred illegal immigration, he is basically pro-open borders. That's what he is.
Did you see 7.2 million people come in during the Trump administration? It was a trickle.
He got rid of the policy to tear children out of the arms of their parents. That's true. But it is not true. Some of the other things that have been suggested. Let's be clear. Bipartisan efforts of border reform have taken place in 2015, 2006. I mean, literally since the Reagan administration, right? There have been bipartisan efforts to get something done here. But I really believe we've gotten to the point where many congressional Republicans find it so useful as a cudgel that they would rather keep the problem going for political uses than solve the problem and risk the chance that the president could share in the credit for that. In the same way that we see some of them, even though we had great bipartisan cooperation on the infrastructure bill that I work on, a lot of them who were against that, only to turn around and try to get credit for it when we actually have a ribbon cutting or a groundbreaking.
The reason that some of these numbers stay where they are is because it just seems like instead of actually owning some of the issues that we have, instead of acknowledging that the president maybe has lost a step, the administration keeps saying, don't believe your lying eyes. And
Facts. Again, this administration likes to piss on our leg and tell us that it's raining. Okay, they are reality deniers, right? They want to talk about the right being election deniers. Okay, well, Democrats are reality deniers. Okay, because everybody can see with their own two eyes what is happening to this country. Everybody knows that the economy is not great, but the Biden administration says the exact opposite. Everybody knows that crime is out of control, but the Biden administration, Democrats say the exact opposite. Everybody knows that the border is out of control, but the Biden administration says the exact opposite. The Biden administration comes out here and says the exact opposite of what everybody's feeling, and then they act shocked that Biden's poll numbers are in the tank. Again, it's amazing how that works.
And that's why you're
respectfully, Joe,
that's why you're at 18%.
Respectfully, I think congressional Republicans are saying, don't believe your lying eyes, which is why they're polling at about 15% right now.
I know that
right
Congress
now,
has never Congress isn't running
have
for
economic numbers
for president.
Is it my lying eyes that under Joe Biden we've had the most job creation in American history?
Well, again, coming back from the pandemic, okay, when you lose a bunch of jobs, it's easy to get into office and to say, oh, well, I created more jobs than ever when you're getting back jobs that you lost during the pandemic. Again, they love touting these talking points that really are not as impressive as they want to make it out to be.
Is it my lying eyes telling us that unemployment and inflation are both below 4% and have been that way for the longest time in who knows when? Is it?
Wow, incredible stuff. Just lying. Lie after lie after lie. Inflation just got under 4% if you want to believe the government, right? But for a vast majority of the Biden administration, inflation has been up significantly. It has went up historically, okay? And that is why people don't feel like the economy is great despite the government numbers, is because we have not experienced this amount of inflation since the 70s and 80s in terms of inflation rising at this pace, okay? Before, we were used to 1% to 2% inflation per year, especially in the Trump administration where inflation was damn near non-existent. Now, all of a sudden, as soon as Biden gets in office, inflation skyrockets, right? So again, this gaslighting here from Pete Buttigieg, the Biden administration, it's just not going to work, right? Pete Buttigieg may be a good slick talker, okay? But he can't slick talk the American people into believing his garbage. He can't even slick talk Joe Kernen into going along with his nonsense.
Reality? Or is it spin? to point out the fact that manufacturing jobs are up under this president and were down under the last president. These are matters of simple fact.
When we heard for 3 years that the border's closed and it's secure, and Mayorkas said it's closed, and 7.2 million people have come into where our big cities have no idea how to handle this. And then you hear from the administration
here's the thing.
that it's not their fault.
This is really important. This is really important, okay? The common sense position, and the position that, by the way, a lot of moderate Democrats and moderate Republicans would always say, the kinds of things that you hear at the Chamber of Commerce in Indiana, where I come from, is that there ought to be more legal immigration and less illegal immigration. And yet when there's a chance to actually do that, that's not what happened. The last administration cut legal immigration.
Well, I got to tell you something. I'm not sure if there should be more legal immigration. Okay, I think that we should be strategic about legal immigration, but we've taken in so many illegals that I think that we need a pause on increasing legal immigration, right? I think that we need to take a step back and say, hey, you know what? Let's deal with the issue that we have here before letting other people into the country, whether that be through illegal or legal pathways. I mean, obviously you want legal immigration, right? You want, people to come to the country to have an opportunity to contribute to the American economy, okay, and to be a part of the American dream. But you want certain individuals, right? You don't want everybody. Particularly, you probably want individuals that have skills in areas of expertise that we lack, okay, that we need. We don't have here in the United States, okay? What you really should be doing is actually training your own workers to fulfill those needs. But sometimes you can't do that fast enough, and you need to import a workforce, okay? So I get that. I understand that. But for the most part, I think that we need to pause on immigration and figure out what the hell is going on, and then resume legal immigration once we've figured out this illegal immigration problem, once we have that resolved. I think that's ideally what needs to happen.
And meanwhile, our economy is pulling people just as much as terrible conditions in Latin America are pushing people. And when there's finally a bipartisan compromise that would help address at least some of those issues, congressional Republicans couldn't get it done because Donald Trump, who's not even in elected office, killed it. That is a fact.
Well, again, I don't think that bill would have solved the problem. I think that bill would have normalized the problem, and that is what Democrats want to do. Ultimately, at the end of the day, if Democrats want to close the border, if they want a real immigration solution, they would get on board with the Secure the Border Act. And until then, quite honestly, they just want open borders because there's no reason for Republicans to compromise on this issue. They don't have to. They have the American people on their side.
That we'll see whether this moves the needle. I just think, the American public just wants something that benefits them. They just don't want to hear that what they see isn't happening in this sector. But we appreciate your time, and we'll be watching on...
AKA BS, right? The American people don't want to hear the Biden administration's BS, right? That's essentially what he's saying, because that's what it is. It's gaslighting, and it's showing up in the polls, okay? It doesn't matter what issue it is. People can see that, okay, the Democrats are full of it, right? Like the issue of democracy. Everybody can see that democracy actually really means democracy TM, which means Democrat power, right? Trump is a threat to democracy TM, Democrat power. And that's why when you look at the polls and people talk about who they trust more when it comes to democracy, Biden and Democrats are not outright winning on that, right? And the reason why is because everybody knows they're full of it. It doesn't matter what the issue is. Democrats are absolutely full of it, and the American people can see it. Let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.